Hi everybody, I'm Ubercoo, and today I'm going to be reviewing Rolling Kansas. Rolling Kansas is a classic cult film from the early 2000s, according to IMDb 2003. It is a stoner comedy that I think had some pretty good quotes. Also has a bit of a controversy and a little bit more depth, and I'll get to that in a minute. Before I actually go into the detail about the film, I do want to point out the technicals. So, as I said, IMDb states that it came out in January of 2003, and it was directed by Thomas Hayden Church, who is Sandman in Spider-Man 3. He also plays Mr. Griffith in Easy A. Now, he also has a writing credit with his partner, Dave Denney. Now, I tried to look to see if there was any behind the scenes of the film about, interviews. I didn't totally do a lot of digging around into the main cast for talking about it. I just basically looked into if there was any information from the director or the other writer. Dave Denney wasn't became super famous, so he you can't really find a lot about him. I tried to look for interviews about with Thomas Church, and there wasn't a lot. I tried. There's not even the copy that I have doesn't have any commentary to the film, so I can't really. I wish I could provide more detail about all that stuff. But unfortunately, I just couldn't really find a lot of information. If you have information, or if you want to share, let me know in the comments, all that good stuff. Now, let's see here. Oh, so who is it starring? There's James Roday Rodriguez as Dick Murphy. He is basically the main character of the film. There's five guys, but I think he is one of the main focus and the main driver. Literally, he drives the car. Sam Huntington, who is, if you know Sam Huntington, he was really hitting it with those early 2000 films, with Detroit Rock City, and I think one of his earliest films I remember him from was it Jungle to Jungle with Tim Allen? So that was another one. Let's see. Jay Paulson, who plays... I didn't say. Sam Huntington's name is Dink, short for Dinkadoo Murphy. And then Jay Paulson, he plays Dave Murphy. So there's three brothers, Dick, Dink, and Dave Murphy. Ryan McDow as Hunter, as a friend of theirs, and he's like the big guy. Charlie Finn is playing Kevin. I'll get to the characters here in a moment. The story itself is it's about these guys who find basically what happens is because Dick's business as a t-shirt seller and maker is not doing so well. His wife is filing for divorce. In the process of doing that, her two brothers come over to help move furniture out of Dick's place. And then, in the process of doing so, they find an old letter and a map from the brothers' parents. Now, and you actually see this in the film. At the beginning of the film, they set this all up, where it shows a bunch of hippies and they're surrounded by this big forest of marijuana, and then it says somewhere out there is a big ass forest of marijuana, which is great. Let's see here. That's the start of the film, and then they decide to go to Kansas, try to find the magical forest, and sell, basically. Talk about the arcs. Let me talk about the arcs. So, as I stated, Dick's arc is his ex-wife. He actually is the leader, basically, of the group, and then because he's the oldest, and then he assigns different jobs to each of the characters. Dink's job is to handle the map. Dave's job. What was Dave? Oh, Dave was on transport to help drive. Hunter, he actually chooses to bring the beer, and Kevin, his job was to get cutting implements like saws and what have you. Now, during this process of this setup in the beginning of the film, I find this character, or I find the story to be a character in itself. The whole the structure, because the way they set it up, they give titles to weird things, like or things you wouldn't expect, right? Like the characters get a title for their name, and then like when Dick's wife brothers come over to pick up the stuff, they have their own tags, their own titles as Sea Cow and Fatty. Now, and this is because Dink is actually disabled in the film where he can't walk. His arc in the film is that towards the end he actually finds humility in that. Like he explains in the film that he was in an accident and that's how he can't use his legs anymore. From the beginning, you see he's an angry guy. You see him as like yelling out to people, and he takes it out on fat people. The two brothers come over, right? When they come over, he calls them Sea Cow and Fatty, and then the titles pop up as their names, Sea Cow and Fatty. Even though a few minutes later, Kevin, as they leave, Kevin points out their actual real names. I can't remember offhand, but you can see that it's Dink, the one who is just taking out all his aggression. From there, I'm deciding on how I actually want to, if I want to go through the story, if I just want to go through kind of the. Let me start off with the story because the movie itself actually progresses very one scene after the other. There's not like you can't really describe it without going into chronological order because that's the way they set it up. I will say this: the structure of the film is a lot like I feel the Odyssey, right? That's the foundation that it's built on. And it reminds me of Oh Brother Without Thou, which came out about the same time, like either just before or just after that. And some of the instances to support that, I would say, is there's three women who work at a gentleman's club. The three temptresses, right? And there's also the crazy characters that they involve themselves with. There is the various police, right? That's the hurdles that they have to get over, and then like just weird characters. Well, I say weird, but they're unique characters, right? Dave's arc doesn't really have an arc, but I think that's because they cut a lot out from him. Like the if you as you watch the film, you see it's like he was supposed to have a few lines more, but then they just kind of cut it. Like, there's a really good scene where he's talking about, he's talking to his brother Dick, where things could be a lot worse and stuff, and that's like his main. That's like the only real scene that he has, right? I mean, it's bad to say, but he just doesn't have a lot to do. He's just more along for the ride because he's a friend, and he's driving the car. But they didn't really give him an actual structure. At least that I saw it. I tried watching it over and over again. I think they just cut him a bit dry to where you couldn't get anything. Hunter is a character that has narcolepsy, where he basically he falls asleep at random times. Sometimes in the film they play it for comedy, sometimes not. And in each of these parts, in each of these character arcs, actually take a point in the like the way the movie is structured, it's very well written. In that, structurally wise, it's well written. Let me say that. It makes sense as you watch the film. It's a good film narratively. Kevin's arc is he is a he just seems like a easygoing, simple guy. He doesn't like. I don't want to say stupid. He's not stupid, but he's just kind of in his own world, and he's just a really happy-go-lucky guy. He doesn't, he has some really odd, funny lines. There's a lot of quotes in this film. I'm horrible with quotes, so I'm not going to go through them, but it is very quotable. Also, I want to talk about there are moments where, in the beginning of the film, the character, like, I find the story is a character unto itself, because what they do is, as they introduce characters, they also introduce things as characters, like the shitty tools, which is in the film. They say the shitty tools, and the shitty car is another one. There's a scene where Hunter falls asleep to discover his narcolepsy, and he falls on one of Dink's pet rabbits. And when doing so, they also show that because he's a big dude and he's got his shirt off, he says man cans. So that's like another title, which is, I just think I thought it was an interesting style choice in the film about how to present, just basically to present things. Like, this is the thing that you should, that it's that's highlighted, basically. Oh, I do want to point out, I didn't talk about, Dave does have backstory where him and Kevin both work at a gas station, and they also sell marijuana. Let me say this. The story takes place in a nondescript time frame. They keep it vague, but they do establish the time. Like, so for instance, in the beginning of the film, they've got the flashback to their parents, what they call the hippies Murphy, and you find out that they were busted and went to jail in 1970. And then it says like 18 years later, so then you can infer it's 1988 when the story takes place. Also, it says somewhere in Texas. You can actually look it up on IMDb. I don't remember offhand what the name of the place was, but it was a lot of it's filmed either in Texas or Kansas. Let's see here. There is I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really stands out structurally. I find that this movie is not simply a stoner comedy. You can simply watch it as that, which is great, and you can watch it one time as a funny movie, maybe twice, a couple times. But there is a underlying message, I believe, to this film, and I want to point this out here in just a few. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about before I go into the details? Oh, I want to talk about the side characters. So, there's a cameo by Rip Torn. He is playing, I guess, like the mentor, like the, the guy who comes in, like a Gandalf, like the wise one, like the mentor that comes in to help the gang and, guide them along their way. So it's part of the hero's journey. And his name is Oldman, as one word, Oldman. Kevin Pollak is in the film. He's actually uncredited, but he plays Agent Brinkley. And then Thomas Hayden Church also plays two characters in the film, a highway state trooper, which didn't really have a name, I think, and Agent Madsen. I want to talk about, besides the fact that on the surface it's a stoner comedy, they do make a lot of potentially offensive jokes in that it is based in 1988 in Texas. So as watching the film, I took count, okay, at the offensive jokes. I counted a progressive 15 or 16 homosexual jokes in the film. I lost track of how many fat jokes were in the film. I would say 7, maybe 8. But there's also, I don't think they're played as, and on the surface, I can see how it's offensive, but rewatching it a few times, I realize the jokes are progressive. Meaning, within the first hour, there's 10. And in the last half hour, there's like 6. So it like ramps up. And whereas the fat jokes, they're pretty scattered. I don't think that it's meant to be that way. I don't feel that, rewatching the film, I don't feel it's meant to be offensive because, and I'll say this, there are audio cues in the film that highlight points in the film. Like, for instance, in the exposition where they're finding, or they find the map and they find out what's happening, when they mention the magical forest of marijuana, there's like this dun-da-da sound that you hear. You hear it twice. Then, later in the film, Kevin actually realizes and then comes out to his friends that then also has the bum-ba-da-ba, and it has this celebratory sound to it, right? Continuing on with that, there's a later scene where they're talking to the 3 girls, trying to give them a ride to a different town, and then Kevin again comes out and says, "You girls are pretty. Sorry, but I'm gay." And then and then again you hear the bum ba da ba. So I find that to be a. I thought that was a positive tone. I thought that was from what I heard of it. Now, if you totally disagree with me and you think this is horrible throughout the film, let me know. I thought that at first too. I really did. That's why I really wanted to rewatch it, because I noticed those moments in the film where they celebrate him coming out to his friends, and there's other instances of secrets coming out that you find out. Like, for instance, with Hunter, when you realize that he has narcolepsy, one of the moments is he's sleeping in the back of the car. They have to slam on the brake, and then when he wakes up, he describes a dream that he had where, and they show it in the movie, where all his friends are laughing at him from the outside, and then he was stuck inside. Now, you can take that as you will, but when he comes out and he says it, he says that the reason why he is overweight is because when he was a kid, he swallowed a marble into his lung, and then it's still there, so then that hindered his playtime with the other kids, and then, became a big kid. That is a moment where he is admitting that and coming out to his friends. I think that the overall is that most of the characters, they find their own self-discovery, and then they can admit that to their friends because they realize that they are friends, not just the 3 brothers, but like they rely on each other so much in the film that it's just this camaraderie that they and well, it's a love, right? It's a love of friendship and closeness of these guys. Kevin is a good dude. They don't play him bad in that. It's not like, he's, I don't know. It's hard to judge. I think I'm not trying to judge. I'm just trying to interpret is a better word. I think that even with the jokes, I still think it's a positive message for people to be themselves in front of others, regardless of what that is. I also want to point out there is odd instances of I'm not sure how to describe it. There's, like, for instance, Dink comes out and admits to his friends that he had sex with his babysitter, and then she was, like, in her 60s. I think, so there's just moments like that, right? I don't think there's a lot of undertones is what I'm getting at, right? There's a lot of undertones about, that I think if you look past the jokes and the negative, I think there's a positive message underneath. I'm trying to think of what else. I also thought it was weird. I also noticed there was references to bakeries or baking, or like, so when Dink comes out and talks about having sex with the babysitter, he says, we all loved her. She was in her, she smelled like a bakery, right? In another instance where Dick is actually talking to a customer at his job at the t-shirt place, and then he says, gee, Mrs. Something, you sure smell like a bakery today, right? And so I thought there was like 2 or 3 instances where they bring that up about, like, old women, and, like, I don't know if this is part of the thing. I don't know what's going on with this film. I'm just simply pointing out what I'm interpreting from the film. I think that it is a positive message in these liberal ideals, right? I think that there's a underlining liberalism in this film from the 60s that has this overlayer of conservatism, which is weird. Like, and there's layers to this film, right? And I'm going way too on about that. Even the director himself, he's like, he plays a highway trooper who's also gay. I don't know any of the backstory to these guys, so I'm just simply going off the movie and what I know. I'm trying to think if there's much else I want to point out. I want to talk about the funny. So there's really funny scenes in its ridiculousness. Okay, the narcolepsy when he falls on Dink is funny. And when they play it as a joke, it is funny, even though he does have a disability and he can't help it. But it's just something that, the way they play it. There's also another scene is with Dick talking about the goat and how he hates goats, and then there's like a flashback to him at a like an old country fair with like this little baby goat when he was like 6 years old, right? And then like you can hear the loudspeaker. He's like, better luck next year, little Dick. And it's just funny stuff like that, right? I think that's funny. And then they have another scene where they're sleeping in the field in the car, and then a goat has his head in the window of the car, and then Dick wakes up and he just looks at it, right? It's a funny scene there. Let me think. What else? There's a lot of the writing. There's not like I'm trying to think of like action moments. There's not really a lot of action comedy. There's a lot of writing comedy, and it's just a lot of the nuance of of those little things, right? Of that add character to the film. I would say if you want to watch it, I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend watching it at least once or twice to get a feel for it. Probably twice, because at first, if you don't agree to it, I think maybe you might see something on the second turn that you didn't see on the first. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to talk about before ending the review. I want to shout out Oldman, Rip Torn, because he is a great actor, and I think a lot of people today forget about him. He plays in Men in Black. He's like an older actor. I would totally recommend checking out his older career. He's always been to me, he always seemed like a cool dude, you know, like this old hippie type guy. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but let me know what you guys thought about the movie, and you know, hit the like button if you liked it, make a comment, do the subscribes, all the great things, and I'll see you later.